Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going above and beyond the call of box office returns to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Nicole Finari.
And I'm Stacy Moore.
So, Stacy, what movie are we going to overanalyze this week?
We're going to talk about Wonder Woman, the latest installment in the heretofore disappointing DC Comics franchise. In this chapter, we get the origin story of Diana, daughter of Hippolyta, Queen of the Amazons, savior of cute drowning boys, demolisher of Belgian church steeples, and all-around kicker of asses. Diana leaves home on her magical Mediterranean island with Chris Pine as Steve Trevor, American spy, with the modest intention of single-handedly ending World War I by taking out the Greek god of war, Ares. So what did we think?
Okay, so biases up front. I don't like superhero movies very much, but I definitely enjoyed this one. What did you think?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it felt like an old Hollywood movie, like an old classic era. There was a lot of 1930s kind of screwball comedy elements between Diana and Steve. There was I felt like Clark Gable or Errol Flynn could have popped out at any moment. It had that kind of classic old vibe to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I liked it. I thought the person I saw it with was like, it was just so predictable. And I'm like, it's a superhero movie. They're all predictable.
Correct.
I thought it was better than most. And I didn't see most of the DC offerings because they looked terrible. And I'm not a Batman fan, so I did enjoy it, which I was super happy about. So I will. Should we get the stuff we liked out first, or the stuff we didn't like?
Why don't we do the stuff we liked?
Okay.
So I'll mention that, like, I as far as comic book movies go, or movies in general, I tend to respond more to period dramas than sci-fi, fantasy. I don't connect with all the pseudoscience that other comic book movies have, like, the Tesseract and vibranium, and all this. And
I was going to say, hearkening back to an earlier episode, all of that can be lumped under the rubric of technobabble. Great little vocab
there you
word
go.
for movie people.
Absolutely.
Technobabble. You don't like the technobabble?
I do not enjoy technobabble. I like costume dramas, and this had like every period, every historical period was in this movie. We had like sword and sandal, Victorian England, like World War I fighter planes, like it had all of them. And I know you're on board with me when I say that, like, Robin Wright killed it in this movie. I was ready to follow her into battle anywhere.
She was great, and if we're going to talk about things that we like, we all know I do not generally like large action set pieces, but Amazons, like, coming over the cliffs onto the beach to fight off people invading their island was amazing. I loved everything about that fight scene. It was
fantastic.
Gorgeous. The women looked so kick-ass, and
they were formidable.
Yes, they were formidable. It was beautiful. They were agile and strong and fierce. I have to say, there's an incredible visceral thrill to just seeing a group of women, not just one solo woman, but like a whole mass of women kicking butt. Like, it was great, and I loved it.
Galloping in on horses, shooting 3 arrows at a time. Yeah, when Antiope comes in with that smile on her face, and you realize she's been, like, waiting her whole life for this.
Yep.
She looks like, I thought, like, she doesn't even look angry at the Germans. She looks like, I thought you guys would never come. She's so happy.
Yeah, no, everything was about, I just loved it. It was so great. I didn't like the epic end battle. I thought it was tacked on and awful. The big bad world destroying villains are just never as interesting as the sort of, like smaller scale counterparts, partly because, again, just the complaint was that, it was so predictable. He basically gave the same reason for wanting to kill humans as everything else. This is Ares, the god of war.
Every other supervillain, yeah. It was so deflating.
Yeah, but I'm like, when you're trying to wipe out humanity, like, humans are bad. Like, that's the same speech that was given in every single movie. Like, it's never different. Whereas if you have a more human scale villain, you can give them some sort of legitimate backstory or motivation that makes this more nuanced and interesting. So
he was so Xeroxed. And I love David Thewlis, but like that character was so, like, he even did the whole join me, like that they all do.
Both the villains were old men. It was weird. Like, there was something oddly dissatisfying that Diana takes on two, like, gentlemen with, like, gray hair and, like, I was like, what? That was strange. But
as long as we're, like, getting on their case about villains, like, I thought the whole aspect of the Germans being the bad guys again
speaking English,
such a tired concept.
Yes.
Everyone's speaking English, but like with different accents. So we know they're speaking a different language.
So she like drops into other languages in the middle of the movie, so you know that it's possible. And then but the Germans speak English the whole time. And I was like, oh my gosh, it is 2017. We are over this. Like, this is just embarrassing and old school.
I know. And when Chris Pine was supposedly dropping into his like German character, like, I'm a CIA spy, so I could speak an amazing German accent in English.
Yeah,
So that just fools them all.
Yeah, that was
ridiculous.
That was terrible. I guess I just need to get all the bad stuff out. I did actually find the movie.
Let it out, Nicole.
I didn't like. They use like a lot of. I'll guess and say like gray gels over the camera a lot because the movie was really dark. Like, it made everything really bleak and colorless, and I didn't appreciate. I didn't like that. Like, we're at war and it's grim and gray, and I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's Victorian England, right? It's Victorian London. Everything has to be gray.
Exactly. And I found a lot of the editing of her solo fight scenes a little bit too frenetic. There's just too much cross-cutting, and I was like, less camera is better, especially in a one-on-one fight scene. You're like, just stand back and let me just watch someone's ass get kicked. Like, you don't need to doctor it up this much.
No, and I thought that's what made the first fight scene so great, that battle on the beach. You got to see bodies, like, crashing into each other and dealing with each other. I do want to say that I feel like the first act of the film was the strongest. The second one was also very good and very fun. And then, as you said, that last scene just completely undoes what was kind of good about the movie. It just kind of teeters away off into like a drunken kind of stumble, and then the movie's over. But I appreciated that they didn't put too much Batman in it. Like, there was just one sort of nod at the beginning, and then that, tying it in again at the end. Like, remember, guys, this is a DC movie. This is a Justice League movie. You're gonna see her again. It's like, thank you for not like dragging us through that too much. I was surprised at how quickly I got attached to the characters in the first half hour. Like, when Robin Wright, Antiope, when she has her like glorious death on the beach, like, I was in tears. I was in tears during several scenes of this movie. Like, I really cared about people.
Yeah, I did too. And I think if I had to say what made this movie work over like everything, was my girl Gail owned that role. Like, she was great. She was so believable. She had cheesy, sappy lines, and she committed to them. And her power stance, yes, like she did. Like, you gotta feel like totally silly.
The woman knows how to stand.
Well, no, she does the like veal arm out shield thing, and you're like, she owns that power stance. Like, she owns it.
Did.
It's so she committed to the role and to being Wonder Woman 100%. And I just don't think this with an actress who hadn't just inhabited the role so much, like, I don't think it would be getting all the good reviews that it's getting. Like, it wasn't like great writing, and when you don't have great writing, you need really good acting to overcome it. And she just brought so much heart and warmth, but still, battle readiness and fierceness to this role. And I just commend her. I couldn't have asked for a better Wonder Woman.
She was perfect. She was really, really good. Chris Pine was right up there with her. Chris Pine basically doesn't know how to phone it in. Like, I feel the pieces every time. Like, it was like he would snap his fingers and be like, Stacy, feel something. And I'd be like, okay. And I'd either be like crying or laughing. Like, it generally takes me, with the Marvel movies, I feel like there are some characters, it takes me 3 or 4 movies before I give like 2 flips about them. Whereas these characters, like, didn't you just love seeing the two of them together?
I did,
like,
but
in every scene they were in.
Yes, and I have to say the best line of the movie goes to his secretary. Shout out to the receptionist from The Office, who's like, who calls out every other movie by saying, "Oh, now she's wearing specs. You're not going to notice she's the most beautiful woman in the world."
Yes. Right. He's like, put these on, and she still looks amazing.
Yeah, I was like, and then they quickly dispense with that as a trope, and I'm like, good for you, Wonder Woman. That's so annoying.
It's like, what works on Clark Kent does not work on Diana Prince, unfortunately, for her anyway.
Yeah, no, and the implication being that, like, girls who wear glasses are automatically unattractive by virtue of them wearing glasses, which, as a girl who formerly wore glasses, I heartily resent. That is still being sold in movies, so good for them.
Yeah, that was dumb. Oh, okay, so I guess we'll sort of like, it's hard not to kind of mention some social things, so I guess we'll sort of slide into that. On that same note, one of the things, and I know you're with me on this, I don't always know that you're with me on something. This, I know you're with me. The villain, the female villain, like, really, she's evil and she's missing half her face or a quarter of her face. Like, is that what makes her evil? Is that she's got like a severe deformity on like the bottom left quadrant of her face and has to wear a prosthetic on it. And they even at the end of the movie, they call out in the dialogue, she's like, look at her, look how ugly she is.
Which, like, hello. She was super beautiful. I was like, who is that actress? She's gorgeous. Like, but yeah,
I thought it might be Alicia Vikander or something. I had to wait until I saw the credits. I was like, that girl is like naturally pretty. But the point being that, like, she was the villain because she was ugly.
Of course, no. I think you posted something on Twitter like a week or so ago about villains, like how many villains end up with real severe dermatological issues.
Yes.
Which was so funny, and we'll post that back up in the show notes for everybody, because I was like, that, yeah, and
how lazy. It's like, that's how you have to inform us they're evil by giving them, what, rosacea? Like, it's ridiculous. There were a few things that this movie sort of slid back on the social scale. It slid back on a few things, and that was one of them. Unless we can read it differently and figure maybe they were trying to say that, like, because she was living in this villain was living in this society where her looks were valued more than her intelligence, like, that's why she kind of turned against society and like put all of her intelligence into destroying lives and causing suffering. And
Right.
I did like how a couple points in the movie, like we get to see how susceptible she is to male attention. Like she'll do anything for a handsome guy, like giving her attention.
Yeah, and I really, really liked the gender bending twist of making the male the sort of honeypot.
Yes.
Chris Pine tries to seduce
if
her.
Chris Pine came to you and started flirting with you and using words like entropy, I would do anything for that guy. I would give him any state secrets.
And you know, like I did appreciate everyone around her has to deal with like her being a fish out of water and not understanding that sexism exists at all because she's never encountered it before. And he has a couple of moments where he's like, stay back. But honestly, you sort of get the feeling like he would say that to anybody because he thinks he's like the big hero and it's his job to protect everybody. But he then quickly comes around to the fact that she can take care of herself and can help him in a fight. And I really loved how like he immediately just accepts her for who she is. And there isn't a lot of like, don't paint him as this like, as they do a lot of times with a strong woman, like he never had to come around, you know what I mean? Like he was into her and thought she was great from the moment he saw her, and that was all it took. And I really appreciated not having to have some sort of gross storyline for him.
Sure. Yeah, all he did was observe that she was capable. And I mean, it was kind of a it was a like decently funny gag for him to be like, you know, stay here, stay back, you know, and finally after 3 or 4 of those, she goes, you stay here, and runs off. And he looks at like their cohorts and they're all kind of like, that's probably for the best. Yeah. Let's just wait.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you like the bunch of guys, including Spud?
You know, I would have liked them to be fleshed out a little bit more. It was great to see a Native American or American Indian. I'm not quite sure what the proper term is these days. Apologies for not being that woke. Really great to see that minority in a film. I really liked how diverse the island itself was as well with the women.
Right.
I'm not even going to try to say the name of that island. I can't.
Themyscira.
Oh, nice.
She said it like 5 times. Themyscira.
I know, and every time I was like, the what now? How do you spell that?
I thought she was saying
spelled, and I was like, nah.
Themyscira.
Yeah, me too.
Like,
I
was like, yeah.
Yeah. And shout out to like, we're an island of women who don't need men. And the whole, that one of their first scenes together, she's like, yeah, we really just figured out that like women are just much better at pleasuring each other than having a man do it. And I was like, yeah, lesbianism, rock on.
Although statistically that couldn't have held true for most of them. I feel like if on average 1 in every 10 people is gay, that means there were like 9 out of 10 women on that island that were just like waiting for Zeus to come, quote, breathe life into a clay statue. Like that had to be pretty hard.
Show up as a swan.
That had to be.
Right. He did a lot of nasty stuff to
Zeus?
get women.
Are you going to be Zeus? That had to be tough. I'm just saying. But it was a Bechdel paradise, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so when Robin Wright's character is attacked on the island and she goes down, you see like another woman in utter panic just like run to her side, and I very much felt like we were meant to see that as, you know, her lover or wife,
her partner,
or significant other. Sure. Yeah. So I felt like the movie did not shy away from the fact that an island full of women is probably going to have sex with each other, and I applaud them for not trying to sanitize that. Like, just addressing it head on was so gratifying.
Sure, yeah. And I liked that she was allowed to be a woman. So I felt a little conflicted about her sort of Smurfette syndrome as soon as she leaves the island. You know, it went from, you know, Bechdel paradise to Smurfette.
Right, and there were like, again, other than the one American Indian, there were like no people of color either.
Sure. Like
When
the
she's off the
diversity in
island.
that group of cohorts was basically like, I'm the Native American, I'm the one with PTSD, I'm the, you know, the Middle Eastern guy that no one
Funny
in Europe
sidekick, yeah.
accepts. Right. So like that was fine, especially if you see it in the sense of she was basically trying to understand. Like this was a story about a woman trying to understand men. Like she doesn't understand their ways. You know, she tries to comfort the Scottish guy with PTSD, and he utterly rejects it. And she's so confused. Like he wakes up from a nightmare, and she runs over, and she's like, "It's okay, you're safe." And he's like, "Get off me, woman!" And she's like, "I don't understand. I was just trying to help, but that's not what he wants, and that's not what she's used to." You know, she gets it. When I say that she was allowed to be a woman, you know, she gets excited when she sees a baby. You know, she's like, "Oh my God, a baby!" And he's like, "You can't grab people's babies. Please, please, let's keep walking." She gets really excited over ice cream. I feel like that was actually, to me, was the best line in the movie when she tastes the ice cream for the first time and looks at the vendor and she's like, "You should be so proud." This is amazing. So they didn't shy away from, like, we're not trying to make her just, it wasn't just that usual, like, rah-rah, girls rule, boys drool, you know, pandering nonsense. It was like, she's a woman, and, like, she's vulnerable, and she feels things, and, you know, she has an overactive empathy, and she likes ice cream and babies, and that's okay. Like, she can still be all those things and still be, you know, into the cute guy and you know, and be able to fight and whatever. I appreciate it that much.
I agree, and I'm right there with you up until, like, there were just times in the movie where we were at kind of a low shot and her bum's hanging out at me on this big screen, and I'm like, no, put some clothes on, woman. Like,
It's winter, isn't it? Everyone else is in wool.
Yes, and I did feel like I liked that her outfit looked a lot more like armor. But I felt it was a little skimpy. But I did love that she looks fit, but not emaciated. Like, she's supposed to be an Amazon. She shouldn't have been super skinny, and she wasn't. And I thought that was great. Like, she looks strong and toned. Yeah. Oh, and this, like, sorry. This one, you know I'm going to say, I'm so predictable. That stupid CGI Golden Lasso looked terrible. I hated it. I hated it.
Like, as a device?
Yes, it just looked dumb in the movie. Like, it looked, again, it just plucks you out of the movie because she, like, picks up the lasso and it's like a cartoon all of a sudden, you know, it's like it's drawn. Yeah. I just wanted it to be like a physical object in the real world because it looked stupid.
Like kind of a 1980s cartoon effect. Yeah. Is it weird that I resent the Christianifying of the Greek myth of Ares? Like, it was clearly just the story of, like, the fallen angel Lucifer. There's, like, no Greek myth like that about Ares at all.
Yes.
Like, Venus, goddess of love, caused more wars than Ares did. And this is, like, high school literature. Like, this is stuff that... This is not some obscure, like, mythology. It's... Kids are taught this in school across the country. Like, I just thought it was a really strange choice to turn it into basically just God and Satan.
Yes, no, so that was you know, the one of the friends I saw it with, like, that was what his complaint was exactly about the villain. It was like, basically it was just the devil, like, that's the same backstory. I'm like, but don't they all have that backstory? I feel like every freaking episode of Doctor Who that I ever saw was like, mankind is evil and they need to be destroyed, and the doctor is like, no, they're worth saving. I'm like, you know, I feel like so to me, I'm like, yes, it's the devil story, but it's like every major villain story, and I just find it stupid.
Yeah, and okay, so that's where I feel like the movie just really goes off the rails, is when I thought they were going to end the movie with her killing Ludendorff and nothing changing, and Steve Trevor giving that heartbreaking speech. Oh my God, I was in pieces when he says, you know, like, hey, maybe we're all to blame. I wish I could tell you there's one man who's responsible for all this, but I can't. Like, I was devastated, and I thought they were going to end it there, and I was really moved, like, and impressed at, like, the bravery of that message. And then it just degenerated into, no, wait, it's all okay. All we have to do is win hand-to-hand combat with this one bad guy, and everything's fixed forever, which is like, is such a tired trope. And like, who can punch the hardest? That's how things are solved in the real world. Like, that is such like, male-centered, male-conceived, God bless males, but like, you went wrong on this one. This trope is dumb, and I hate it.
No, I totally agree with you.
I resented that they ended on that after taking it to so many interesting places, like her trying to understand, like, the pointlessness of war and why. And World War One is like, back me up about this. It's like the prime example of a pointless war, right? Of like aggressive, insecure, male posturing, just got completely out of hand to the tune of millions of casualties. That's, and her, and like, it's sort of beautiful to see her in the middle of it, trying to just make sense of it and failing, and just seeing like civilian casualties, seeing the displaced families and the orphaned children and the biological warfare. And it was all so reminiscent of the Syrian conflict. So like Diana's disgust and frustration like reflected our own, as we watch these things happen on television. Like, it was just so good. And then it all just went ploop. It just ended it on like the typical, like, no, it's okay. We're gonna sort this out by fighting. We're just gonna have a good scrapping at the end. Even when she says like, oh, I've learned that the only way to I don't even remember what it was. Love is the answer. She basically goes, love's the answer. And then she kicks his ass. Like, that contradicts what I don't understand what the movie was trying to say with that ending. Do you?
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And I think, so sort of moving into the theme of violence and women and violence, like, on the one hand, yes, women can be just as violent as men. On the other hand, all of these superhero movies, every summer reboot, everything that's coming out, that's quote unquote for the international market, is violent. As if America's only commodity is violence. And it's like, well, if we want to have diversity, we can have a violent movie with black people in it and make Get Out. And if we want to have diversity with, we can make a violent movie with a woman superhero, and that'll be. But it's still all violence. Like, I'm so tired of this much violence. I don't care for it. I can overlook it when I really love a movie, or when it's like an action movie. Again, like when the hand-to-hand combat is choreographed like a dance, then I'm okay with that. But I mean, America's big export in entertainment and in like reality is violence. We're at war with everybody, and all we do is make these violent movies for international markets. And it's equal opportunity to have Wonder Woman, but at the same time, I'm with you. It's like, can we represent a character who's just not destructive?
Like, give me an Erin Brockovich that, like, she saves the day by working really hard and researching and Xeroxing stuff, using her sexuality to get access to records, or just working as part of a team, like collaborating with a team to change hearts and minds or whatever. But it always comes down to, and like I said, if I thought for a second they weren't going to do it, and I was really impressed, and then it just went, nope, just kidding. We're just going to have a knockdown, drag-out fight, and that's going to settle everything. Again, it really does bother me that the Germans get kind of thrown under the bus again. I feel like that's kind of a global punching bag that they've become, and it feels dated to me, especially at a time when Germany essentially has the moral high ground over us anyway. And when our president's chief advisor is a white nationalist, and their leader is actually doing her best to like keep unity amongst the developed nations. I just don't feel like we have any place to be giving the Germans any grief. I mean, even Captain America had good guy Germans during a World War II movie. Like, to be be placing them again, like Chris Pine even says, like, I'm the good guy, they're the bad guys. And there was no nuance. Like, Ludendorff and Moreau were, like, cartoonishly, like Indiana Jones Nazi evil. Like, it was just, I'm sorry, like, just give me some more depth to not just, like, these kind of, like, video game shoot 'em up, like, targets. Like, I don't care for it.
Yeah, and like especially like you said in World War One, and I'm certainly not a military history expert, but like pretty sure like everybody was the bad guy in World War One.
Absolutely.
No, I thought that too. I'm like, it is getting old that it's always the Germans, and given the setting of World War One, the movie could have done a lot more with the nuance of there really aren't good or bad guys in this conflict. It was just some dumb bunch of countries that got into an alliance with each other and stuff got out of control. And we don't have that here. I'll admit to the visceral satisfaction of being able to see a woman take these roles, but it's tired, and it's, I don't know, it's wearying just to have this nonstop violence coming at me all the time. I hope this trend ends sometime soon. And I will say, the one thing actually that human beings have in common is love. Like, let's bring back the rom-com for international export. Could we do that? I mean, heck, in South America, like, the men will watch soap operas right along with the women,
Yeah, the telenovelas. Yeah. I agree. And I think that one of the things I was excited about, and that they touched on but didn't really follow through, as we've been talking about, is like not having a female protagonist. I think feminists, women in general, we don't just want a female protagonist for the sake of it. We want it because she'll bring a new perspective, and a perspective that we're more like that we can connect to. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want to see I do love the occasional movie like Salt, which was apparently written for Tom Cruise, and they just slotted it in Angelina Jolie. Like, I do appreciate those types of stories where, she gets to be absolutely equal. Like, the fact that she's a woman is inconsequential. But then sometimes I also want it to be different because she's a woman. I want there to be a different kind of story told, a different perspective. And they got onto that a little bit with her, not being willing to kind of like walk past the civilians that, were in trouble, and not wanting to kind of just go along with his very well-intentioned mansplaining of like, no, we can't help them. Let's just keep going. No, that's just how things are. Let's keep going. And he does believe that, and he's got reasons for saying that. He's not just trying to be a jerk. But she does say, like, no, I'm not. I'm not going to keep going with that. I'm going to address these things that everyone else has decided is just inconsequential. I don't feel like it is inconsequential. I'm going to go blow the top off a church steeple.
Yeah, take that, Christianity. Sorry.
Yeah, right. And I did like that, and because I feel like this is important, and I'm even surprised that we haven't really touched on this yet. The whole Chris Pine as object of affection, and like physical attraction, right? I still feel like the most subversive thing you can do, even now in a movie, is portray a man as the object of romantic affection from the point of view of a woman. Like, I tried to think of the last example in a mainstream movie of that happening, and the first one and only one I've been able to think of is Disney's The Little Mermaid. Like, which coincidentally also she meets him by saving him from drowning in the ocean and then fumbles her way through unfamiliar urban life. But I mean, that's kind of pathetic, right? That the last movie I could think of where we get to see someone, a woman, look at a man and just be like, wow, you're gorgeous, and I'm super into you. And like, why can't, is it just, I feel like I have a pretty good memory about movies. I can't think of any others right now off the top of my head, other than a 1980s children's cartoon.
All I can think of was the 90s Diet Coke commercial, where the women are all in the office and the guy takes his shirt off. It was like such a like...
And the construction worker.
Yeah. It was like such a famous commercial.
Maybe Captain America, but it wasn't really from her point of view. Like, it was more from his point of view, like regarding her being attracted to him. It wasn't even, she was still the love interest. I can't think of another one. Like, that's depressing to me. I cannot think, for all of the movies where women are paraded around, like, as like, wow, look at how beautiful she is. I'm so in love with her. Look, she's continuing to be beautiful and attractive and lovable. And this was the first movie I've seen since I was 7 that was true of for a woman, like meeting a guy and being like, wow, you're great and I'm into you. And you got to see it from our point of view.
Yeah.
From the straight women's point of view.
Yes. I'm blanking as well because I haven't spent any time thinking about this, but call to action on Twitter or Facebook, listeners, if you can tell us, how we're completely wrong, and you can think of a million movie examples where this is a thing. It's not coming to me. But I did want to say, like, kind of one last thing about their relationship. So, I admittedly am just any entertainment that's written where the woman is like the tough guy and the warrior and the soldier, and the man is the like nerdy thinker. I'm on board for. I can name like a ton of examples. My favorite show, Farscape, Firefly, also sci-fi. The TV show Chuck, like
Wanted with Angelina Jolie.
Yeah. Anytime that's the model, I'm all for it. But the problem with this one, as you were saying, was like, but now they're both soldiers and they're both fighting. There is no like, we can win this war with brains and ingenuity. We don't have to resort to violence every time. That piece was never represented in the movie, right? Like, it's his choice is violence, although it's self-sacrificing in the end, and her choice is violence. And there is no one who says, wait, let's like come up with a clever strategy. And I realize like that's missing from this movie, and I really missed it. Yeah, it's like I said, in so many ways, America's biggest export these days is violence.
Yeah, and I think it's because of the exact reason you say, is that it exports well, and comedy just doesn't. Comedy and thoughtful dialogue just, but it doesn't go very far.
But I think that like rom-com, like relationship stuff does. Like, people like a love story. That's true. So.
But nobody makes rom-coms anymore.
I know.
Sadly. This is the closest thing to a rom-com I think I've seen in like a decade. So do we feel like, is this a step forward for I don't know, representations of women in either movies or comic book movies? Does it matter? Are we glad that this happened? I don't know. I think I am. I think I'm glad that it happened. It sold really well, and everyone loves, Gal Gadot, and they love Chris Pine with her, and they love everything about the movie's doing really, really well. It's a hit. And they're going to make way more Wonder Woman movies, and hopefully fewer Batman movies.
Yeah, so let's actually, I think that is the perfect question, or the perfect answer to what you would give this movie on the social impact scale. So if you want to explain the scale and put a number to that vote of confidence, go for it.
All right. So social impacts score. 1 being, this movie changed nothing. 10 being, the world we once knew is gone forever. I'm going to give this movie a 6. That's a strong 6. Just because it did so well. Everyone's on board with this movie. I think a whole lot of people kind of feel like the ending was not so great, but everyone enjoyed this movie. There's already going to be a Wonder Woman 2. Mysteriously enough, Chris Pine has signed on for not 1 but 2 Wonder Woman sequels.
Yeah,
so we'll see how he comes back. Yes, we'll see how he comes back because he was integral.
Relative, like great grandchild. Yeah, I'm actually.
Yes, exactly.
I'm actually going to give it a 7. For Patty Jenkins having now made the most money, having the best opening weekend for a female director. That's amazing. So you have a female director that did really well. You
Absolutely.
have a female star doing well. I think, I hope that this movie is going to capitalize on, more women getting to make movies and to star in movies and having more women-centric. But I can't give it too high because, again, it's just more violence. And it wasn't,
right.
Honestly, it wasn't that good a movie.
Right. It wasn't a groundbreaking story, but amen to what you said about Patty Jenkins and female directors and female, women's storylines. I absolutely agree.
Recommendations?
Actually, yeah, it's a great segue. I watched this recently. It's a film called A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's like a film noir vampire love story, and it is by a Persian American director, a female director named I forget her first name, but her last name is Amirpour, and it's about this female vampire, which is someone you don't actually see much in vampire in the vampire genre, but it takes place in Iran, in a town called Bad City, and it's very interesting, black and white. I really liked it. So, cool. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Cool. I am going to recommend the great World War I movie, and forgive me for butchering this, Joyeux Noel, or Merry Christmas in French.
Oh.
It's a composite movie of a bunch of real stories about the spontaneous Christmas Day armistices, that took place during World War I, and it's just a lovely war movie that actually is about peace and humanity.
Oh my God, if you ever want to see me cry on the drop of a dime, just, tangentially mention the Christmas Day armistice. I fall apart. So I'm going to try to hold it together, but I didn't know there was a whole film about it.
Oh, you have to see it. It's so good. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Movies That Matter. If you did, please take a second to leave a rating or a review on iTunes and recommend it to your friends. Check out our website, www.moviesthatmatterpodcast.com, for links to things we've discussed. And if you want to leave us a comment on our Facebook page or on Twitter with our tag @MoviesMatterPod, we would love to hear from you. We are so excited to talk. Also, check Twitter to find out what movie we're overanalyzing next. And remember, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.